everyone, welcome, and hello to people on Zoom and hello to people on Facebook Live. Let's see, we are recording, and so please keep your lines muted. My name is Wendy Sachs, and I am a board member of Plant Powered Metro New York, and it gives me great pleasure to be a part of this particular series. Plant Powered Metro New York is a community-based organization committed to our collective health and well-being, our collective health empowerment through whole food, plant-based nutrition, and evidence-based approach to nutrition that can prevent, treat, and even reverse chronic illness. We've been offering a wide range of online programs since March, and while we look forward always to meeting you in person, because we like to build community around health events and nutrition. Programs like these have become a great way to share our message and also create a library of useful resources. So today's guest is our beloved chef, Carole, who's also the culinary educator for Plant Powered Metro New York. We're gonna have Carole demonstrate for about 45 minutes, and you feel free to put your questions in the chat, and then we'll ask her the questions in the last 15 minutes of the session. And if you'd like, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box and let us know where you're from. So without further ado, welcome, and what's on the menu today, Carole?
Hi, thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Lynn, and welcome everyone to my home. And I wish you were all here with me and we were all in close contact. But during the pandemic, we are distancing ourselves and we are cooking. Today, we are making two different things, actually. We're making corn chowder, and we're also making peach galette. And so we're gonna start with the soup and get the soup cooking, and then we'll move on to the dessert, okay? I am gonna start by first putting on the pot. I have a soup pot, and I always get the pan hot. So we're gonna get the light under the stove, under here, and get this hot. And I've done a lot of prep ahead just to kind of keep us moving along. And I want to, while we're waiting for the pan to get hot, I'm gonna show you that I have one onion that is chopped, and I have a cup of celery and 2 cups of carrots. I also have some garlic that I've already chopped, and I have some red and orange peppers. And then we have some chopped potatoes that are not cooked. They're just diced. They're the small new potatoes that are really delicious right now. They're really in season. In fact, everything we're making is so in season. And then the fresh corn. Now, if you didn't have fresh corn, you could definitely use frozen corn, okay? I use frozen corn all the time, and it's perfectly delicious. But as soon as, you know, the corn starts to become, you know, buy 5 for a few dollars, you definitely want to use the corn, the fresh corn. And you know that when you bring corn home from the store, you want to try to eat it almost immediately, because if you just put it in the fridge and you leave it there for a few days, the starches actually build up, and it's the most fresh when you're actually either buying it at the grocery store or buying it at the market. And while we're still waiting for the pan just to get hot, I'm going to show you a technique of actually taking the corn off the cob, because I thought that would be nice for you all to see. I husked this corn and I've taken off all those strings. And there are various ways of doing this. Some people actually do it in a bowl, actually, so that it doesn't go flying around. And they take a bowl and they take a bowl and then they put another bowl upside down so that this is standing, and then they cut it. But I find that that method doesn't work so well like that. It's not my thing. So I actually prefer just to do it like on a towel like this. And I use the bottom here. And I'm just looking at the pan, and I just take a sharp knife, not that knife actually. I'm gonna take a sharper knife that I have here, and I'm just gonna literally run my knife down the just hugging the side here, okay? And I like doing it on the towel because that way when things go flying, it kind of all stays together on a sheet pan. And you can tell when you're going too far in because you get, and that's pretty much it. That's your stripping of the corn. To get 3 cups, you need about 5 ears of corn, okay? And that's about how much you need. And this corn is, I think, very, very fresh. Let me just taste it. It's delicious. It's very milky right now. Very, it's so yummy. I could eat it just like this, actually. But this is also very delicious for salads, but we're gonna definitely make the soup. So let me find a place for this because we'll add that eventually. Now, how do we know the pan is hot? I know I've talked about this a lot with everyone, but there could be some new people here today, but you always want to have your pot hot. And I always put my hand just inside and I can feel that it's hot. But you can also take some water and listen, and there's bubbles. I mean, I'm choking here a little bit. Okay, so this pan is hot, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna water or raw saute the onions, okay? And I don't cook with any olive oil or any kinds of oils. There are no nutrients in those oils, and if you can teach yourself to eliminate oils, that is ideal. So we're gonna put this onions in here. What happens when you start eating corn? You start choking. And you can hear that sizzle, and I'm gonna get a big spoon. And what I did, just so you know, we had a whole onion, and it's about 2 cups. Sometimes 1 onion is 1.5 cups, but I had a big onion, and it was 2 cups. Now, you can use stock, any kind of stock you want. You could use water, okay? If you're buying stock in one of those boxes, just look for the salt content because you don't want to buy stock that has too much salt in it. I actually this morning made some stock that was exactly from every single thing that I prepped here today. So when I cleaned the 5 ears of corn, I put those corn cobs in the water, and then I also put some ends of the carrots, I put the ends of the celery, I put some garlic in, and I made a big pot of stock that basically matches every single thing that I'm putting in here. Now, these are already sizzling, and they're starting to brown, and we haven't even added anything. We haven't added anything, but we're gonna add just a little bit of stock here, just to keep things from sticking. And I will show you what that looks like. I tell you, it's not good to eat corn the very first moment that you're on camera because it gets stuck in your throat and then you can't speak well enough. But let me just show you what this looks like. I'm going to get another pot holder so we have 2. This is already cooking and becoming transparent, and I'm going to show you right here that that's what that looks like, okay? At this point, I usually add the garlic as well. This is 2 cloves of garlic, okay? And a lot of people always ask me, how much garlic? You know, like, you'll learn that what normal clove of garlic looks like. Sometimes it's gigantic, and sometimes it's little. And so you just kind of have to, you know, figure it out. Sometimes I use 3 cloves. It's not an exact size. What I like to say often, and I know you all who have been following the demos for a number of weeks now, I really tell you that the recipe is really for your ingredients, and it's to be a guide. But you have to learn how to ad-lib. And this is actually a soup that I think is perfect to ad-lib on. Most soups are good to ad-lib on, but this is like the summer soup of minestrone. You know, like when you're making minestrone in the winter, someone will say, I make minestrone this way with these vegetables, and someone will say, well, I make it with these vegetables. Corn chowder is like that too. If you don't have potatoes, then don't put potatoes. If you have more zucchini, put more zucchini. These are just the basic ingredients, and you can change the proportion, but I would say you probably always need at least 3 cups of corn. So Just 1 second. Let me get the stirring here. And okay, so I'm cooking this, and this is looking really good. It's not, I don't necessarily want it to brown, but it's becoming translucent. Okay. At the same time now, I'm going to put the carrots and the celery in here, and that's the basis of our steak. Okay, and again, it's a pretty simple soup once you have everything prepped. I'm gonna get this stirred. I'm gonna put a little bit more broth, but not too much. And I'll show you what this looks like. You do want it to cook, but I just want to be able to show you what this looks like all mixed up. Okay, see how that looks? And it looks great. Okay, and the things that we're going to add now to this are the various dried herbs. Okay, we're going to add some fresh herbs at the end, but I want to show you that we're going to use 2 bay leaves. Okay, they're going to go into the pot. Okay, we have a teaspoon each of thyme, oregano, and basil. Okay, if you had mixed Italian seasoning already made, you could use a tablespoon of that. But basically, I have a teaspoon of each one of those things already here. So I'm going, whenever you use the fresh herbs, you want to just give it a little bit of, with your fingers, give it a little bit of grinding up, because that kind of releases the aromatics and gets them so that they're all ground up and now pieces in it. Kind of helps release the aroma and the flavor. And always try to cook with dried herbs that are the freshest. If you're one of those people that haven't used any dried herbs in a long time and you question how fresh they are, just get yourself a new jar, because you definitely want to always have dried herbs that are fresh. Okay, so that's all mixed in. Okay, we're not going to put the peppers in at all now, and we're going to get I diced the potatoes, and we're going to get those in, and we're just going to take them out of their water. Okay, so I just cut them ahead of time, and the reason that I soaked them in water was so that they didn't brown. Okay, and they are, these were little tiny potatoes that were about this big, so I cut them into chunky size, and I would say that that's probably ½ inch or so. They're bite-sized pieces. Okay, you could use any kind of potato, Idaho, a Yukon Gold. As I like right now, because I shop a lot at the market, the new potatoes are really in right now. So we're gonna put these potatoes in, and really this soup is just practically done, but you have to cook the potatoes. And we're going to get this out of here, this bowl, put that in there, and then we're gonna get all of our corn, and we're gonna put our corn into the soup, okay, and that is 5 ears of corn, okay, which equals 3 cups of soup, okay, and we did another bit of soup. Now we could save this at the end for decoration. We don't need to add it now. Maybe we'll save a little bit for later. We'll save a little bit of it for later, for decoration. But let's get that out of here. And then I also had some thyme, and I'm gonna put some of that. That's still on its little branch, but I'm just kind of, it's all dried right now, so I'm getting that in. And then we need 8 cups of broth, okay? And again, I mentioned the broth, that we don't have to have broth. We could use water, but let's get this at least stirred around, and I will show you what it looks like before I add all the broth. And it looks fantastic. This could also, when I look at this right now, it almost could be a salad. If the potatoes were cooked, it could be a delicious, delicious salad with some kind of it. Funny to think about that I'm making soup, but it suddenly looks like salad. That's the beauty of vegetables, is that it can be one thing one time and another thing another time. Let me just show you what this looks like, And that's what this looks like, okay? All corn, potatoes, carrots, celery, onions. And I'm gonna put that back. And now we're gonna add our stock. And I said that we need 8 cups. And this pot basically, I know, holds 8 cups. So we're not gonna put our peppers in quite yet. So we're going to put this stock in. And how do I know? Because this is a quart, and a quart is 4 cups. So I had filled this morning, and this is 4 cups. It's pretty full here, and it's almost to the top. And I'm going to just, I don't have any additional stock, so I'm just going to put water. And I'm going to fill this up. And sometimes you don't need the full 8 cups. Okay, but I'm going to pour it in. And then this is going to boil now, okay? This is, and I'm actually going to set it to the back. I'm going to put the light on in the back. And we're going to move this to the back so that we actually talk about dessert. So I'm going to take that, push that to the back, and turn that light off. And actually, we could probably put the peppers in now. The only thing that I don't put in now at all is I don't put in the zucchini. The zucchini I cut them thin and I make little circles out of them, and we'll do that. We'll cut them right now. But I just want to show you that we'll put the red peppers in now. Okay, so that's that. And let's just get rid of all the stuff. I like getting rid of things. Okay, and I'm gonna actually put a lid on this. I don't, only because we are on a time limit, doesn't necessarily always need to have a lid, but it's best for fast cooking to put the lid. And I'm gonna just cut right now. We have 2 color zucchinis. I like buying both colors so that we can see them floating in the soup. When I'm making things, I always try to think about all the various colors of the rainbow. That way, when you're ladling the soup, you have the orange carrots, and you have the green zucchini, and you have the yellow zucchini, and you have the red and orange peppers, and everything's a little bit of a different color. So these here, I'm just gonna cut, and I'm gonna make very thin rounds. Okay, just very thin, because they're gonna cook at the very end, and they're gonna cook very fast. And I want to show you that when I'm cutting, I'm always clawing and using my hands, so like a claw, because you don't want to have your hands out so that your fingers don't get cut off. And I'm holding the knife like this, okay? And I'm using my hands as a guide, okay? So, and I'm just cutting these like coins. They look like quarters, okay? And there are approximately about an 1/8" thick, okay? They're very thin. And like I said, we're gonna put we're gonna do that at the end. Let's just get these cut. I'm not sure we'll need all of them, but we'll just get them cut. They're really pretty. It's a very exciting time of year now. It's when you just want to eat zucchini and tomatoes and eggplant and corn, and I don't know, your eyes are bigger than you can realize when you're at the market, because suddenly every single thing looks so delicious. So just that, I'm going to get rid of that. And then we'll do also some green. And oh, I did want to show you one really fun thing that I had in the fridge. I just remember. We'll take a minute. Oops, sometimes things roll to the ground. Okay. Just don't think we need all of this zucchini, but we'll just get this done. I really think this is probably enough right here, because I am going to show you something in the fridge that I want to share with you, if I can find it. It's a very special, I forgot that I bought this yesterday, and it's a very special, if you can find this, it is an avocado. It's an avocado squash, okay? And it looks just like an avocado. I haven't washed mine yet, so let's give it a rinse. And I can't explain to you, I wish you were all here to taste this, but it really tastes like an avocado. So I usually cut off its top and its little bottom, and because I like it to be flat like this. So just collecting all those ends right there. And then I kind of think about it just like an avocado. And it is like a squash. You see that? It has seeds, but I can explain to you that it tastes buttery and it tastes a lot like an avocado. So at this point, you can tackle it any way you want. You could make slices as if you were cutting an avocado. I treat it just like an avocado. I pretend that it's a quartered avocado, and then I will cut it, and we'll add some of these too, actually. They won't be the same size, but they'll be the same thickness. So they won't look like coins. Some of these are gonna be big, so I see that we should actually quarter that. And so that things are the same size. And I don't like that these are so big because someone's gonna try to eat that. So I'm just gonna pile it on top, cut them. They look like little tortillas now. And that is the avocado squash. I get that from the Union Square Market. Maybe some of you will find it where you live, but I like just pointing it out because I think it's so beautiful and it is a special. So we've got all of this really beautiful zucchini that we'll put in to the soup just before we're gonna serve it. Okay, so let's get this moved and this moved. I'll put this over here. And we are basically cooking soup. And it's not even come to a boil yet. There's a lot of liquid in there. And let's make sure that the burner is up. And we're at the same time, we're gonna preheat the oven right this very moment for the dessert. So I'm gonna put the dessert at 400, the oven at 400. Okay, that's preheating. Okay, and we're just gonna leave the zucchini close by so that I don't forget. And then before I move on to anything, I always like just reading the recipe to make sure that I haven't forgotten anything crucial. Okay, so we did the onions, we did the corn, and we did celery, carrots, peppers, and we did potatoes. We have the zucchini, we did the garlic, we did the thyme, oregano, basil, we did the bay leaves, the nutmeg. I forgot the nutmeg, you see? And then we did 8 cups of stock and water, and I put a pinch or 2 of paprika at the end. So let's get the nutmeg, and for the nutmeg, it's a teaspoon of nutmeg. And I just want to show you that I have a little, it's called a microplaner, but it's small. It's not like the microplaner that most people know. Most people know about a microplaner that looks like this. That's for the citrus, okay? This particular thing is especially for nutmeg, and it has a lovely little storage area for the little nutmeg. And this is one spice that I actually don't have pre-ground because I think it's heavenly and I love it so much. I sometimes put it on my oatmeal in the mornings, and I just grind it. And we actually need a teaspoon, which is a lot of nutmeg actually. But, and let's just, we almost have a teaspoon there. And the good thing about this little grater with its storage is that if you grind too much, that you can just keep the rest in here for the next time. So we're gonna get a teaspoon here, and we're actually gonna just take the lid off here, and we're just gonna measure this. And I have almost a teaspoon, pretty much a teaspoon here. Just gonna try to poke it in there, but a teaspoon of nutmeg. Okay, we're just gonna sprinkle that on top. And like I said, I did a little bit too much, but that's okay. That will be for the next time because the lid goes back on it, and this little container gets all closed up, and we're done with the nutmeg. So that's that. So I'm just going to move that out of there. Just going to give this soup a little bit of a stir. And it is starting to get hot in there. What we really need is for it to start to become into a boil. And we've got plenty of other things to do with the dessert next. So let me just I like having everything clean because we've just dealt with a savory and a salty dessert, even though there's no salt. I immediately think when dessert is starting that everything has to be cleared because I don't like any garlic or any remnants of anything to be around. So let me just get this rinsed off. If someone had one question for any reason right this very moment, I'd be happy to answer while we're in the kind of transitionary period.
Couple of things, Carol. Couple of questions. What's the pot you're using? Is it a Le Creuset?
Yes, it is a Le Creuset, which I swear I've had for 25 years.
Awesome.
And it's a pot that I love so much that it's worth the money. I mean, you can get a Staub or a Le Creuset, and I've been actually baking a lot of bread. Since the pandemic, I've been, baking that one bread where you just put it in a pot. You don't even knead it or anything, and I've been baking the bread in this pot too. So everyone if you have a Dutch oven, it's almost an essential pot.
Great. And the Avocado Squash, I know you found it at the Union Square Market. If
Yes.
one isn't in New York, it's at the Asian markets in the summertime?
It's possible, I go to this vendor called Lonnie's, they grow a lot of Korean. So you probably could find it at an Asian market is what I'm guessing.
Great.
That's probably the first place that I would look for it.
Great. And one thing to all the participants, if you want to put in where your name or where you're from, it'd be interesting for us to know, but that's up to you. I didn't want to distract from Carol, but
that's nice. I would like to know because I think I have many California friends that come in, and I believe that we have gotten a lot of West Coast people coming, and I'm sure that we're so used to just our New York Central, but now that we're Zoom, I feel like there's lots of participants from all over the world. So it would be great to know where you're coming from. I would love that.
One last question. What is the Nutmeg Grater brand?
It's a microplane. It's called a microplane. So just look up, if you were to Google, I would go to, you could do Amazon, but I would just Google microplane, nutmeg microplane. That's it. Yeah, that's all I would do because you would find it. I buy that as a gift for friends all the time because I think it's just a lovely little gift. So now we're going to move on to the dessert. And I don't even think we need this cutting board. But we will also still pay attention to where we are with the soup, okay? So it's one of those things where we can't forget that we're doing the soup. We also have the oven preheating. I always make sure I have a gas stove and I make sure that the gas is on when I turn on the preheating. And we're gonna get the dessert started and we're gonna flip over our recipe page. And the very first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make the crust, okay? Now, I wanna tell you all that I was a baker for a very long time. And I became a baker by default, actually. One day the pastry chef just left and walked out and the chef said, "Tamar, your desserts, you're assigned desserts." And from then on, I had to teach myself desserts. And I also worked in a bakery and I made baguettes and a lot of Italian pastries. So my love for desserts is enormous. And when I went to a whole food, plant-based lifestyle, and I gave up sugar, thanks to my friend Wendy, I could say, because she talked to me and told me that she was making apple pie without sugar, salt, or oil. And I said, that's impossible. How could one do that? It's impossible. As a chef, you're married to certain things, and certain things that you're married to are salt, oil, butter, sugar. Those are things that you just can't even imagine. So what happened for me a year and a half, I've been a pescatarian for 20-some years. So I hadn't eaten any animal meats, but I still was eating dairy, and I was still eating a lot of sugars. And my doctor said, "You're becoming pre-diabetic." And he goes, "I don't know what's changed with you, but just be careful." So when Wendy had told me about this apple pie that she was going to make, I said, "Hand over that recipe. I'm going to figure this out." So what I have been doing for the last year and a half is trying to reinvent and figure out how to make the desserts and the things that I love so much. I used to always make pies all summer long, but how do you make them and they're never going to taste the same, okay? I'm going to tell you that. They're not going to be the same. There's not going to be glistening sugar. There's not going to be flaky crust. But I tell you what you gain. You gain your health, and you also gain the freshness of the ingredients. Because for the first time when I made that apple pie, I tasted just apples. And today when we make this peach and blueberry or raspberry or whatever stone fruit we're going to use during the summer here, you are really going to taste those things, and that's what is going to win you over. And you are going to be more than happy to share these things with your loved ones and your friends, because you are giving the gift of health and you are not killing them with sugar and butter and oil, okay? So that is my sell to you. And I still am perfecting things myself. So the very first thing that we're going to do for our crust is we are going to get our flaxseed, and it's technically they call it a flaxseed egg. And that's, we're gonna make like a flaxseed egg. Now I have a jar, just so you know, of whole golden flaxseed. And in the top of it, I always have a little teeny saran wrap bag, because I use a coffee grinder to grind up the flaxseed. But I don't do a gigantic jar at a time, because it's better for the flaxseed to stay whole with its nutrients, because once it starts to hit the day of light and it's ground, it changes its compounds. So we need 2 tablespoons, okay? So let's get this measured, get all of this measured. And I have a measuring spoon that is 2 tablespoons, okay? And we're just going to get that, and we're gonna put that in the bowl like that. And we're going to seal this up, and we are done with the flaxseed. And when that little bag runs out, I grind up more flaxseed, but that takes care of the flaxseed, okay? Then we're gonna get 6 tablespoons of water, which is technically a half a cup, okay? But let's just get, I don't worry about the cold water. But let's just do this like this, and we're gonna, and this is 2, so we're gonna do 2, 4, and 6, okay? That is technically similar to a flaxseed egg. Now, if anybody wants to know what the exact flaxseed egg is, it's usually 1 tablespoon of flaxseed to 3 tablespoons of water. That equals 1. So basically, we've done 2 eggs. It's not normal that you put eggs in pastry crust, but for this crust, nothing seems normal to me, because it's all kind of made up and all kind of what works. Okay, so that is our, whoops, look, there's nothing like spilling. We'll get that taken out. Not a problem. Let's just get a towel, and we will just soak that water up. No problem. I tell you, all the time, things happen in the kitchen, and you just have to work with it. Nothing like having a cleaner counter than you have it. Okay, so in this, we're going to, while this is sitting aside, we are going to make we're going to have 3 tablespoons of cashew butter. Now you can use almond butter if you like. The reason that I use the cashew butter is because it makes a lighter crust, okay? The almond butter is way more cheaper, and if you're on a budget or you don't want to buy the cashew butter, the only time that I use this is just for making pastries. I don't slather it on, I don't make dressing with it, I don't do anything with this cashew butter. It is like buying expensive ingredient just for pastries. So we need to have 3 tablespoons, and we already have, so I'm gonna put a tablespoon, and I'm gonna get our little spatula. This is really the best way. So I'm gonna put 3 tablespoons in here. Whenever I measure anything like this, I always make a little pile. So in case I get the phone call and someone distracts me, I'm not gonna plop it on here and then I'll come back and say, where was I? I actually put little teeny piles all over the place as a way of remembering. And this is so fresh, this particular cashew butter. And you could grind your own. That's another idea that you could do in your Vitamix or in your NutriBullet. So we need 3 tablespoons, okay? So that's that. Oops, I stirred the soup. I'm gonna get this. Okay, so let's get a plate. It's always good to have a plate for these little odds and ends that we might use again. Okay, we are also, let's check the soup. I know that we're doing 2 things at one time, but I just heard it starting to boil. And I'm gonna just check it out here, get it mixed up, and it's cooking away now. And I saw that it was starting to, I saw the light kind of get a little flame, so I knew something was happening there. I tell you, when you're cooking, you have to have a 6th sense. You have to listen all the time and see all the time. And okay, so now we also need a date slurry, okay? And a date slurry is date paste. So you could, if you want, you could use maple syrup instead, and you would use 3 tablespoons of maple syrup if you didn't have date paste. I always have date paste in the refrigerator, and the way that you make date paste is you take the jewel or the neglet dates and you soak them in some water, and then you puree them with some water, okay? And it makes a paste like this, okay? And what we're gonna do is I want to have what you call kind of like, I'm trying to imitate maple syrup, okay? Basically, but I want to use dates. Why? Because they're a whole food, and it's actually, I prefer to use that than something that's processed. So I'm gonna take a tablespoon, actually I'll show you a better, an easier way of doing it. I actually have a measuring spoon, a tablespoon and a half, okay? I'm gonna take a tablespoon and a half, and I'm gonna put it in this, get light to get all that clean. And I'm going to take another, we need 3 tablespoons. So I'm gonna do a tablespoon and a half of date paste and a tablespoon and a half of water. And that's gonna make our like date slurry. So I'm gonna put a tablespoon, and we just need to get all this out of the spoon. Don't wanna waste anything. And we're basically just making a slurry. And a slurry looks a little bit kind of like runny date paste. Okay, and that is going into this bowl here now. Okay, and we're getting that all scraped in. Okay, and then all we need now is our flour. Now I like weighing the flour, but I've measured it out because I thought many of you might not have scales. I use an OXO scale if you were to buy a scale, something I really like. And I'm just mixing all this, okay? I'm just showing you what all this looks like. And I'm just mixing it all up, mixing all our liquids, okay? And at this point, what's gonna go in here now is we're going to, like, put that there. And I'm going to, now it doesn't look like I measured these properly because this is indented, but earlier today, I actually measured a cup of almond meal and a cup of spelt flour, okay? Now the recipe says another tablespoon and a half might be needed, but we're just going to put both of these spoons in, okay, like that. And we're gonna get rid of this here. And then we're going to I like getting a spatula to tackle this at the first onset. And if you wanted to know what kind of almond flour, I saved the bag for you. So I use this Bob's Red Mill, and it's the super fine almond flour. And again, you can buy Bob's Red Mill makes an almond flour, but it they grind up the almonds and they still has the brown skin on it. And I actually prefer the kind that's blanched. So they're using the almonds that are white, just like we're using the cashews that are white. So you can use any kind of sweetener that you would like. If you want to use date syrup, you could definitely use date syrup. If you want to use maple syrup, you could use maple syrup. I don't put too much, you would use 3 tablespoons if you were using the date syrup or the maple syrup, the same amount that I have here. Okay, now I think if any of you are bakers and know this, you don't want to overmix anything. Okay, so right now we have this looking like this. Okay, and I have very clean hands. Okay, and usually at this point, I'm just gonna check the recipe. We did the flax, the water, the almond, the flour, the syrup. We've done it all. I'm gonna actually get out, while my hands are not dirty, a piece of, you could use a plastic, don't use very much saran wrap in my house, but this is the one time for dough that I absolutely use it. Okay, and you could put it in a container, but it's good to have it laid out on the counter. Hopefully it's not gonna blow away. Okay, and then we're gonna get in here with our hands, and we're going to start holding in the the flour, okay? Yes, there's a question about using equal parts of date paste to water. So we needed 3 tablespoons. So I used a tablespoon and a half of date paste because it's very thick. And then I used a tablespoon and a half of water. And that equaled 3 tablespoons of what I'm calling our slurry, okay? Now, you can see this dough is coming together. And just like if you are a baker and you've used any kind of other, if you've been a baker and you use butter or any kind of dough, whether you're making a biscuit, any kind of dough, you absolutely do not want to overmix it because it just makes everything really tough, okay? So you basically just want to get that together. Now I'm noticing this is just a little bit sticky, okay? And so I don't want it this sticky. We're going to use flour ultimately to roll it out, but let me just show you. I want to get a little more flour, and if you remember, we didn't add the extra tablespoon and a half. And I always, whether I'm making bread or anything that I'm making, I usually hold back. Now, while our hands are clean, this would be an excellent time to make the soup. And this is looking delicious. Okay. And I see our time is already moving along here. If anybody wants to use any substitute flour, I use spelt flour. You could use oat flour if you like, if you have a gluten intolerance. But I like the spelt very much for baking. Why? Because it's very nutty tasting. Okay. So this dough is a very forgiving dough. Okay, and you can see that it's not sticky anymore. Okay, and I'm going to put that on make a disc, get all this extra flour. We're going to use this ultimately. We're going to use this flour for rolling out. And we're already, the time goes so fast. I just don't know. So here is the disc, and I'm just showing you how I manage. And basically this would go into the refrigerator. And usually what I do is I take the rolling pin and I give it a little bit of a roll. I try not to pat it with my hands because your hands have actual added oils on them. So I usually just kind of do this. And this would go into the refrigerator now for a good 20 to 30 minutes, okay? So we're gonna put this in the fridge for a very few seconds because we have to move things along. But I do want to just show you what is going on with the soup. And I need to have the Immersion Blender, which is just out. And I'm going to show you how to, what we're going to do. Let's look at this soup right this very second. It is boiling like crazy. I can try to take it off the stove here just to show you, but I have to be very careful, just showing you how that looks, okay? And ultimately, what I want to do here is I want to take out these bay leaves, okay? So I'm taking out one. We actually had 2. Sometimes I don't know where the other one is. mean, if the other one gets ground up, it's really okay. But at this point, what I like doing, and I'm gonna turn the back burner off for a moment, and I cannot find that other one. So crazy. Well, we won't go looking for it so hard. I know there were two. Well, maybe it will surface or it will get ground. And ground baby is fine. This is an immersion blender, and you usually want your soup to cool, but I'm all the time doing this when it's hot. But if you follow me exactly, just please be very, very careful, because I really would recommend, if you've never done this before, that you really let your soup cool. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna blend a little bit of the soup, just enough of the soup, okay, just enough, so that it has a little bit of creaminess to it. So I'm gonna put this in, and we're just going to put this, and we're gonna grind it up. Now I don't want everything to grind, I just want some things to grind. And how do I check it out? I actually take my spoon and I make sure that I haven't lost any of the big potatoes. I still have big chunks of carrot, and the soup now, instead of the broth being clear, looks a little foggy. Looks nice, and it's because the potatoes now are brown. And I'm just gonna do that, pretty much that, okay? That's gonna be that. We're done with that. Put that in the sink and move this over here. And let's just finish the soup, even though we're gonna move on to the dessert. So at this point, I'm just gonna, very, very hot, okay? Very hot. Hot, hot, hot. This is the point where I'm going to put the zucchini in, okay? We're gonna put the, and honestly, this zucchini, just with it not even being on the gas stove, would actually, the zucchini would cook. That's how thin the zucchini is, and that's how it would definitely cook. Let's get that mixed in. At this point, I also put a little teeny bit of paprika. Okay, just a little bit, not a lot. Just for flavor. Again, just for flavor. And the last thing that I do very quickly, and you don't have to do this, but I'm just going to show you an extra step here, even though I know we don't have a lot of time, because we still have to move on to the dessert, is I actually take a teaspoon of cumin with the mortar and the pestle, which I don't have close by, but I will get the mortar in a second. I take a little bit of cumin, and instead of putting this in at the beginning, I put it in at the end, and that makes the flavor so it's at the top, okay? Again, this soup looks fantastic. We're not gonna serve it till the very end, but it looks beautiful. And I will show it to you somehow. And how is that I'm gonna show it to you? I'm just gonna show you and bring it close to the camera and show you how it looks, okay? It looks delicious, right? And it has all those different chunks and things in different sizes. That's gonna go to the back, and it actually can cook on a low heat now. We're not trying to cook it too much. And we're just gonna put it on the lowest heat. And we're going to use this, this cumin. And after it gets roasted, we're just going to turn that off. This is gonna go in there. This is gonna go back up here. So that's the place to go. And then I'm just going to grind this up. Again, this is a way of finishing the soup so that the flavor of the cumin is at the top. It's a really nice way, because if you put that in at the beginning, that flavor might get buried, and now it's going to be at the top. We're just going to put that in like that, get this out of here, and we are going to quickly finish making the tarts. I am always over-ambitious here, trying to do too many things in a short amount of time, but it's really okay because everybody wants to learn how to bake, and baking takes time. Baking is definitely takes time. So what we're gonna do is get the dough. We're gonna actually pretend that the dough has been in there for a half an hour and that it's cold, okay? And actually, we're gonna leave it in the fridge for 1 more minute. I just thought of another thing. Leave that in, and we're gonna get this pan on, and we're gonna start the filling. Okay, and we have a clean cutting board, and we have a knife, and we have our peaches. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna cut these peaches. Okay, these are cleaned peaches. I washed them yesterday, and you know when you see there's a pit inside, right? And some peaches are clinging, and some to the pit, and some all peaches are different, and how some free themselves from the pit, and some don't. You can tell where to cut it because the line actually indicates that. It actually tells you where to cut. It had a sticker on it, so it made me think that I hadn't washed that one. So I'm cutting this. I have this pan on, and I'm gonna give it a quick turn. Okay. Get this pit. Sometimes they just get so clingy. Peaches are funny things because they sometimes just depends. There, and we are going to take at least one. Okay, we're gonna cook one, and we're gonna make kind of like you'll see how I'll explain it. It's better for me just to show you. We're gonna put that in the pan, and we're gonna, and this is gonna be for the free-form galette. Okay, I'm putting this in the pan, and at the same time, we're gonna keep those close by, and we're going to make a little bit of a thickener. And I have arrowroot here, okay, and we're gonna take our measuring cup, which is here, and we're gonna get rid of all these dirty things, and we're going to rinse this out. And we're going to take a quarter cup of water, okay, and a teaspoon of arrowroot. Okay, we're just going to make a thickener, okay. Sometimes people use flour, but I like not using flour because I like the actual taste of not having flour. And we're just going to put that in there, and as soon as that cooks, that is going to start to make its own glaze, and it's going to look just, I'll get a spoon and I'll show you what that looks like. Dirty every single thing. Here's what we're basically making this that I made earlier. It's like kind of peach yum. At this point, you want to put a little kind of sugar in it, okay? Now you can do many things at this point, okay? And it's really up to you. Okay, it's not an exact science. You could put some date paste in here to sweeten this. This was one thing that you can do. I actually like putting just a little bit. I have this apricot spread that I really like. It has it has apple cider in it, and it's apricots, but it's just a spread. And I like to just take a teaspoon, just a small amount, and that is the sweetener. I think it works really well, but you can, again, use whatever sweetener that you would like, and I just get that melting in there. And I also get a lemon, and I give it a little bit of a squeeze for flavor, okay? And I squeeze that. You could use a little bit of the zest. That would be another thing. But again, it's just a nice, and I want to show you what that's looking like. You can see how it's all congealing, and that's the arrowroot. Okay, and at this point, that is done. And I take one peach, I turn this off, and I actually cut the peach, and I put a little more peach in there just to extend it, okay? It's not all cooked, and I also love very much rosemary. Rosemary and peach go so well together. And I have some fresh rosemary. And if you don't want to put rosemary with your peaches, definitely don't put rosemary. You know, it's just something that I really like and thought that, you know, it's really pretty. I see we are already at 6. I can start to maybe answer some questions, but I have one. We're just going to make the quick tart. We already have some that are baked, but I want to show you the folding of the tarts because that's very important. And I'm sorry if we've been rushing because, again, it's my little idea that we can do so much in a little bit of time. Okay, and I'm going to move this just over here because I want to keep it close by. And we're going to take the dough back out of the refrigerator. And we are going to get a sheet pan. We have a sheet pan here, okay? And there's not quite try to make enough room here. This can go away, this can go away. And I'm going to take a piece of parchment. And if you have a steel pat mat, I have a little tiny quarter sheet pan. Don't need any of that. And I'm just going to, this dough makes approximately 5 tarts. I'm just going to divide it. And really, this dough should go back in the fridge. It really needs another half an hour. But we're just going to put this right back in the refrigerator for now. And we're going to roll this out into a circle. And we need more flour. Okay, and we're going to put this flour here on the counter. And we're going to make this into a round. Okay. And I have to tell all of you that when you do this for the first time by yourself, you are going to need practice. Okay, if you've never done any kind of baking, if it doesn't work the first time, please don't give up. Okay, it is something that is a technique and it takes time. Okay, and it's one of the reasons why I don't often spend the time in a demo to show everyone baking because you kind of have to have patience for it. We want flour on this, but we don't want so much flour. Okay, so you use a dry brush. Okay, and I'm making a circle, and it's a galette, and a galette is a French free-form tart. Okay, and in the most perfect world, this will be this. Okay, and it's cool already. Okay, you would want this in the pan. You would want that to cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do here. So, and this technique, I hope you can see that I'm not blocking anything, is I want you to be able to see what I'm doing. And I need to have the raspberries and blueberries closer by because we're going to add those and we're going to make this dough. And I need to have this closer by. We're going to add the raspberries, but basically we have a circle and it's about as big as my hand, okay? It's movable and you could roll 5 or 6 of these at a time, and you're going to put this right in the center, your peaches, your cooled peaches. There's a bit of a glaze there, okay? And then you're going to pile that high. You're going to leave like an inch around, okay? And I have raspberries courtesy of my friend Judy, but I also have blueberries, and we're going to pile those in, okay? And I kind of like putting them on the top, actually, so that they're seen, okay? And then we're going to just fold this, and we're going to pleat it. We're just closing up the sides, okay? That's what we're doing. We're closing it all up, and it's free form, okay? That is, and it has pleats, okay? That is your, and it goes onto the sheet pan. And I usually actually do it on the sheet pan. And I'll show you, let me show you, I'd like to show you one more. If we could just do one more really quickly. And because I have the dough, and I think it's good for you to see it 2 times, okay? And we'll just, because we want to serve everything. And I was gonna show you another. You could actually make the same dough in a tart pan if you want to, okay? But just, this is more of a real tart shell. that comes out of this kind of pan, and then you have a shell like that, and then you would put the food in, and I could show you that later, but that's not a priority. I want to get this free form because this is the easiest thing to do if you don't own, and again, the flour goes everywhere. And I like dusting this off, getting rid of all that extra. Okay, and I really will show you the proper way of doing this. I get the sheet pan close by, and I put it on the tray. Okay, you see how I have it actually already there on the tray. And then I get the peaches, and I put them in the middle. We try not to get them going all over the place. We put them there. Okay, and this one we'll put raspberries. Okay, we'll put a few raspberries on top. Try not to overfill them, okay? You'll learn if you overfill them because you won't be able to wrap it. You have to always be able to wrap it, okay? And then these go into the oven at 400 degrees, and they cook for 25 to 30 minutes. Now that is your tarts, and I want to show you how to glaze them. You could use a maple syrup. You could use the apricot spread to glaze them. I use some aqua fava, which is the juice from the can of a garbanzo bean, and it makes the nicest glaze. And I just paint the dough, and it gives you a chance actually to seal some of those pleats if they're trying to open up. Okay, and that gives you that. Okay. And then those go in the oven just like that, okay? We won't, let me get these in the oven right now, and we'll plate the soup, and we'll get this cleaned up, and I can begin to start answering questions while we're getting things cleaned up and served.
Great. Absolutely wonderful. Looks delicious. I'll start with questions, and yeah, look forward to seeing it all. On the soup, is it smoked paprika or regular paprika?
I used regular paprika, but you could absolutely use the smoked. I love smoked, and you could use that. That's a great question. Whoever asked that question.
Taisha, I think. And also on the soup, can it be eaten cold? It's 101 in Los Angeles.
Oh, yes, of course it could be eaten cold, but they do say, I have a best friend two friends in Palm Springs, and it's 118 there today. And they do say when you eat something hot, and it's hot outside, that it actually, your body temperature does cool down. So yes, you could eat it cold. Of course you could eat it cold. Of course, is my answer. But I would tell you to try to eat it hot. Okay, I would try to tell you to eat it hot.
And shifting to the pastry, a couple questions.
Yes.
When you're making the pastry flour, you use date paste. Can you use date syrup instead?
You could use date, yes, you absolutely could. And you could use maple syrup if you like to use that.
Okay, great. And let's see. Is the glaze you used was for the galette, correct?
The glaze I used for the what?
Was
galette. Yes, was for the galette, yes. Now you could use any kind of glaze, honestly. You could use almond milk with a little bit of maple syrup mixed in. I used to try to do that, and it works. I have just found through experimenting that the best thing that really browns the pastry, that really makes it brown, is the aqua fava. So I just use it. I have it. I'm all the time emptying cans of beans, so that's why I use it.
Great. And can you also make one large galette instead of two small?
Yes, you could make as many as you want. You could make a gigantic one. You could make a rectangular one. You can make a circular one. I mean, that's the beauty of a galette, and that's why I really wanted to show everyone a galette opposed to having tart pans. I like the tart pans too. The reason I make individual galettes The reason I make them is because everybody likes having their own. You know, instead of cutting a big 10-inch galette and into little teeny triangles and pieces, people love having their own, and I've learned that over the years. What I'm doing while I'm talking to you, while you're asking questions, is I'm actually gonna cut tortilla for the soup while you're talking to me.
I think, Carole, we may have covered all of them. Just so you know, somebody may have asked about aquafaba. It's the juice, it's the watery sort of thick juice that you get from either the can of beans or when you're cooking beans, it's the thick water from beans.
Okay, so we're gonna serve this soup. It is so roiling, boiling hot. I hope that none of you in Los Angeles get roasted by just looking at it. And I'm going to find a ladle. I love this soup so much. It's so beautiful. I wish I'll show you how it's so pretty. I have to just take the minute to show you. This needs a little stirring here. It is so colorful that it's this is what it looks like. I just want you to see how colorful it is. Okay? And I really like having it all, the little coins of zucchini, the chunks of carrot, the chunks of potatoes, all of those various textures really work with this soup. Okay? So I'm giving everyone here a ladle and a half. 12 ounces is technically, so we have a bowl of soup here. I'm actually going to put a little bit of fresh basil. I like the basil with the corn. And we're gonna make a little quick chiffonade. I'm just taking a really big leaf of basil here and making, I like putting, I would put the basil in the whole soup if you want, or you could use it as a garnish. It's really, really up to you. It's just that basil tastes delicious, okay? And then I'm putting a few tortillas. So these are just tortillas that are not necessarily, they're not even toasted. You could toast them in the oven. These are just regular tortillas that are soft, and I just cut them up for just in little strips, okay? And then I said we could put a few drops of fresh corn on the top that we had, if we wanted to. And then another quick way to show you, there's two of us here, so we might as well have 2 bowls of soup served. But I'm just gonna show you, if you wanted another way of serving this soup, is you could put salsa on top. I have a little bit of salsa verde, which I love so much, and I just put a big chunk of that on top. That eventually just gets mixed in. And that is our soup. I feel like they both need a little bit of tortilla. It's just extra. That can just go on the top. So that is our soup, okay, just like that. Okay,
Carole,
and
that looks absolutely beautiful. Quick question before we have to sign off. Back to the pastry. You used almond flour, is that correct?
I used almond flour with super fine grind. And then I do want to show you that we have pastries here. I just want to show you that I had to bake them earlier because they do take 25 to 30 minutes. But this is the pastries I'm showing you here.
Stunning. And back to the pastries, there are a few more questions. If you use spelt flour, is it brown spelt flour or white, or does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. It honestly doesn't matter. It doesn't. I bounce back and forth between both. I like the brown personally better, but it's up to you. It's really up to you. And then I do want to show, yes, go ahead.
Can you use a gluten-free flour?
Well, you could use oats, right?
Yeah, so you would use an oat flour, same proportion.
Yes, same proportion. You know, you could use whole wheat flour. And then I want to show you, I just want to show you a tart. Okay, that is here in my hands. Okay, you see? And why I like it to be an individual thing. I'm cutting it in half, okay? And I'm just gonna show you what that looks like, the inside. Okay, and I'm just putting it on the plate here. But it's so nice for a person to have a tart. I think it's a much nicer personal thing. People love to have the individual tart.
Absolutely delicious. And one more just quick question, and we'll be signing off probably by 6:15 for those who are waiting. Why did you use arrowroot over the peaches?
Oh, I used it because it's so that the peaches have a lot of liquid in them. So like when I use apples, often apples don't have all that liquid. So it's just a way of congealing and making everything instead of using flour. A lot of people use flour, and I just prefer not to have the taste of flour. You could use a little potato starch. You could use a little tapioca if you didn't have arrowroot. I just prefer the arrowroot for this particular thing.
Excellent. I think that's it. Sorry, one more clarifying on the flour. In this case, did you use both almond meal and spelt, or just almond meal in the recipe?
I used both, and if you have if you registered for the class, everybody gets the recipes, and so I definitely used both. I had a cup of each, almond meal as well as spelt flour.
Awesome. I think that we covered all the questions. Thank you, everybody. Carole, that food looks absolutely delicious. You know, my favorite thing about your cooking is how colorful it is. And I wish I could come through the screen and have a bite of everything.
I wish all of you were here. And I thank everybody so much for staying the extra time. You know, baking takes time. And I am always trying to squeeze it in with another entree. And I guess lesson learned from me is that we will dedicate ourselves one day to just the baking class and spend more time on all the fine tuning. But if you do try, don't give up, because it is a practice skill. It is something, it's not like throwing together a soup. Baking is somewhat of an art, and you absolutely just have to practice, okay? So please don't get discouraged. And I thank you so much for staying the extra 15 minutes. We have another demo at the end of the month, of July 26th. And if anybody wants to look or contact me, I just started to rebrand myself. I'm no longer at Carole Foods, but the Veggie Vanguard. So that is my Instagram, the Veggie Vanguard. And if you need to email, you could either email the Plant Powered Metro New York, or you can email me direct at Carole with an E, C-A-R-O-L-E, at the Veggie Vanguard. And thank you so much for coming.